On the street, guys can disappear just like that. No questions asked. Every day you're on a knife edge, anybody can come for you, and for whatever reason. Jealousy, revenge, greed, you name it, there's 1,000 reasons why you can get whacked. That's what happened on a summer's night on June 13th, 1975 in Brooklyn.
Andre Katz was a low-level hoodlum. The 22-year-old ran a car business with his father, a mechanic. Far from being the son of a straight-laced immigrant, Katz allowed his customers to pay with drugs and boasted about his good looks. He had as much swagger as any native Brooklynite, and the charm to go with it.
Andre Katz was a car thief, a very, very good car thief. And he was supplying cars to body and fender places, and he was supplying cars to used car lots.
In those days, Canarsie was known for having numerous car chop shops, places where stolen cars would be dropped off and chopped up for parts. Sometimes stolen cars would have their identities changed and then exported to the Middle East. It was all there for the taking. A lot of money was being made, and of course, who was there to take a piece of the action? You guessed it, our people. There was a serious crew that worked out of Canarsie. I mean, to say these guys were dangerous would be an understatement. They had a knack for making people disappear. I mean, this was straight out of a horror movie. They'd whack guys in their club, the Gemini Lounge, and then hang them upside down so their blood would drain out. All this while they'd be eating meatballs and spaghetti. Once the bodies were drained of blood, they'd be chopped up and bagged up. They'd then be taken to the Fountain Avenue dump and disposed of. It was really sick. It was known as the Gemini method.
The crew in question was the DeMeo Crew, headed by an infamous mobster called Roy Demeo. DeMeo reported in to a well-respected captain in the Gambino family called Nino Gaggi. As well as being an efficient killer, DeMeo was respected as an earner in the family. With his band of car thieves and thriving car and drugs business, DeMeo was making serious profits for his boss, Nino Gaggi.
Now officially the rule on drugs was deal and die. The mustaches didn't like it because it brought too much heat. Guys would be given 30, 40 years behind bars, and the bosses were worried that they might flip. In reality, the rule on the street was don't get caught. After all, the bosses loved the money too much to ask questions.
Katz was introduced to one of the members of the DeMeo Crew called Chris Rosenberg.
Now, Chris Rosenberg was a short Jewish kid who wanted to be tall and Italian. You could see underneath the chip on his shoulder the kid was smart and ambitious. Rosenberg was into selling marijuana and stealing cars. Seeing his potential, DeMeo saw an opportunity to groom Rosenberg into an out-and-out earner and killer.
Katz began doing business with Rosenberg, buying stolen parts and working together to change the identity of cars so they could be sold legitimately. A problem arose when one of Katz's friends was pulled over driving one of the stolen vehicles that had its identity changed. Once they realized the car was stolen, he was questioned and led them to Katz.
You see, that's what the cops do. They know that most low-level crimes are linked to a bigger operation. They'd always press you for more. And when you wouldn't give anything up, you might be given a beating or two. But that's how you made your reputation, by keeping your mouth shut, no matter what.
As soon as Rosenberg found out that Katz was out on bail, they paid him a visit. He and two others from the DeMeo Crew, Joey and Patty Testa, rocked up at Katz's shop. "You'd better think carefully about what you're going to do next," Rosenberg said. Katz was not threatened. He told them to get out of his shop. "I'm just telling you, watch yourself," said Rosenberg. They then left. A few days later, Rosenberg and company cornered Katz again, this time punching him in the face and then fleeing. The physical violence ramped up a few days later when Katz was driving in his pride and joy Mercedes. He was dragged from the car and given a severe beating. Recovering in hospital, Katz was incoherent. His ear was almost severed and his face so badly bruised that his brother and father wouldn't let his mother see him. When he was finally able to speak, he told his brother it was Joey Testa and Anthony Senter that attacked him. "I will deal with it myself, and one day I'm going to testify against Chris." After leaving hospital, Katz carried a gun at all times and stopped frequenting his normal spots. He stopped dating and going anywhere alone.
This type of thing happened a lot. Guys would get shot or badly beaten. They would start carrying a piece all the time. They'd stay home, or if they were going anywhere, they'd take someone with them. No more walking the dog at 7 o'clock in the morning. No more going grocery shopping at 11. You have to stop following a routine because they're watching you, looking at where you hang out, who with, and at what time, trying to find out the perfect time and place to whack you.
The revenge came on November 13th, 1974, when Rosenberg opened his garage door and was struck with 3 bullets fired from an automatic rifle. Rosenberg survived through sheer luck, 1 bullet hitting him in the lower jaw, another his right arm, and a third that was aimed for his chest merely glancing off. Surviving what should have been a fatal shooting, Rosenberg was reportedly furious. His jaw was left disfigured from the bullet wound. Despite undergoing reconstructive surgery, from that point on, Rosenberg wore a beard to mask the scars that resulted from this attack. The man who had shot Rosenberg that morning was never seen, but it was assumed by Rosenberg and the rest of the DeMeo crew to be Andre Katz. After this incident, and while Rosenberg was still in the hospital recovering from his gunshot wounds, DeMeo met with his crew, and it was decided that Katz had to go.
When you were marked for death, word would go out on the street. I mean, this was serious business. When you had a contract on you, you had 2 options. Either get out of town or call the FBI. Or if you had the balls, ask for a meeting to straighten everything out. But that would only work if you had someone to vouch for you, ideally a heavyweight. And even then, it wasn't guaranteed to get the beef squashed.
As Katz lay low, the DeMeo crew planned to entice him out into the open. This is when Henry Borelli entered the fray. Borelli was a serious gangster. With a reputation as a tough guy, and with a history of violence including murders, he was a natural fit for the DeMeo crew. Borelli remembered a girl he'd once dated. He called her up one day and convinced her to go over to Katz's shop and entice him into a date. "All we want to do is to talk to the guy, that's all," Borelli told Judith Questel, who hesitantly agreed. In the meantime, Andre Katz had identified Chris Rosenberg as a major car thief to the district attorney. Word got back to the DeMeo crew through cops they had on the payroll. The urgency to have him whacked had gone up a few notches. On a clear summer's day in June, Henry Borelli drove Judith Questel to Andre Katz's shop. As she went there on the pretense of picking up a car for her friend, Katz and Judith got talking, and as planned, Judith started flirting with Katz, who took the bait. They arranged a date for the following night. Henry planned with Judith that he'd come by hers to meet Andre as he turned up for their date. Judith watched from her window as Katz's car maneuvered into an illegal parking spot by a fire hydrant. At that moment, Borelli's white Lincoln sped down the street and boxed Katz's car off. 3 men jumped out: Chris Rosenberg, Anthony Senter, and Joey Testa. Katz was violently shoved into the Lincoln and it sped off.
When you're in a situation like Katz was, there's 2 things you can do. First thing is to pray. The second one is to pray some more. The best thing you can do is to take it like a man. It's all well and good saying it from your comfy couch in your house, but when you know your life is going to end in a very short space of time, there's no telling what your mind goes through. Some guys shit themselves, Others, like Sonny Black, are so stand-up that they walk into a meeting knowing they're going to get whacked.
They drove Katz to the Pantry Pride meat market where Roy Demeo was waiting. As a butcher's apprentice, his preferred method of making a body disappear was dismemberment. They let Rosenberg take his revenge as he thrusted the knife into Katz's quivering body. It was a bloody scene. They dismembered Katz's body, and as a final insult to the victim, and as payback for Rosenberg's facial disfigurement, they put Katz's head into a compactor. The main players in the crew took part. The only one that didn't have the stomach for it was Henry, who told Roy, "I'd shoot anyone for you, but that, no thanks." They dumped the packages into a garbage bin to be hauled away. However, the team had miscalculated when the garbage collection would occur, giving a foraging homeless man ample time to pull open the packages and expose the human body parts. He ran, but another man coming along saw what it was and called the police. In all, they found 8 neatly wrapped packages.
This was the start of DeMeo's murder machine, as some would call it. They made some real rookie errors on this one. First, they used a witness to set up Katz. Judith, racked with the guilt of luring a man to his death, testified against the crew. Second, they left the guy's Mercedes by the side of the road. They should have got rid of it immediately. I mean, these guys ran chop shops for Christ's sakes. Thirdly, they miscalculated when the garbage men would pick up the bags, and therefore left the packages to be opened by some homeless guy.
In an ironic twist, the chief medical examiner at the city morgue, Dr. Dominick Montiglio, had no reason to believe this horror show was a result of his cousin's son's work, Roy Demeo.
And that's how the jungle drums of the street play out. Every day there's some action going on, whether you just got hooked up with a new connection to fence stolen goods, or you just spent the night chopping up a body and putting it into garbage bags. You can say one thing for sure, you don't get bored in this life. Not for a second.